Before joining Biden at the War Memorial, Yoon Suk-yeol later wreathed at the tomb of an unknown soldier. Earlier, he inspected NASA's Space Flight Center along with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that Biden and Yoon have had 4 engagements since Yoon took office less than a year ago. He added that the two presidents have developed a rapport. A priority for Biden will be reassuring his guests over Washington's commitment to extend deterrence. The U.S. nuclear and military umbrella South Korea falls under. The South Korean president has seen his domestic approval ratings die. A recent U.S. intelligence leak appeared to reveal that Washington was spying on Seoul. Yoon is meanwhile likely to come under pressure from the White House to do more to help the U.S. support Ukraine. Remember, South Korea is the world's 9th largest arms exporter and has sent humanitarian assistance to Ukraine and has sold tanks and howitzers to Poland. However, Seoul has a long-standing policy of not providing weapons to active conflict zones. Washington and Seoul are also highlighting their strong cultural links. Recently, streaming giant Netflix announced a $2.5 billion investment in South Korean content. Moscow says that it has seen practically no results from a pact with the United Nations that aimed to help Russia's grain and fertilizer exports. According to Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, the situation related to the Black Sea grain deal has reached a deadlock. The pact was renewed for 60 days last month. However, Russia has signaled that it may not agree to extend it further unless the West removes obstacles and sanctions. In July last year, Russia signed a 3-year deal in which the UN agreed to help try and remove any obstacles to its grain and fertilizer exports. While those exports are not subject to Western sanctions, Moscow says that restrictions on payments, logistics, and insurance are a barrier to shipments. Here's what the Russian foreign minister had to say.
Let me remind you that when this agreement of the Black Sea Initiative was signed on July 22 last year, the text stated that it concerns the export of grain and ammonia. Nobody has given ammonia a second thought until the day before yesterday. Although Antonio Guterres told me yesterday that there is an acute shortage of fertilizers on the world market, primarily from the ammonia crop. And if you have seen the statistics, less than 3% of the total volume of the grain that passed from Ukrainian ports, less than 3%, ended up in really poor countries that are on the corresponding list of the World Food Programme. That's Ethiopia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Sudan, by the way, and Somalia. The rest is more than 80% to high or upper middle income countries.
During a news conference at the United Nations, Lavrov also touched upon the Iran nuclear deal negotiations. The Russian minister said attempts to add new requirements to the original 2015 Iran nuclear deal were complicating the process of reviving it. He also said that the fate of the deal does not depend on Iran, Russia, or China.
Our views are based on the fact that the agreement to revive the deal was reached quite some time ago. But now, for some reason, European countries have lost enthusiasm for it. The Americans, via different sources, are declaring anonymously that we need to look for something else. I don't know. I think this is a huge mistake to pass up the chance to revive this deal.
Meanwhile, referring to Russia's calls for protecting the UN Charter, Kyiv condemned Moscow's hypocrisy. Ukrainian President aide said, I quote, Russia plainly humiliates democracy, freedom, and conventions. Will Venezuela hold free and fair elections anytime soon? Well, delegates from 19 countries in the European Union met in Bogota, Colombia, to find an answer to that question. Representatives include those from the United States who were in favor of easing sanctions against the Venezuelan government, but only if it commits to holding elections with guarantees for the opposition in 2024. The meeting was held in the Colombian capital at the invitation of President Gustavo Petro.
La necesidad de establecer un cronograma electoral que permita la celebración de elecciones libres, transparentes y con plenas garantías para todos los actores venezolanos. En ese sentido, se mencionó la importancia de tener en cuenta las recomendaciones de la misión de observación electoral de la Unión Europea de 2021.
The meeting was called in the wake of the growing political crisis in Venezuela. President Nicolás Maduro's socialist administration has strengthened its autocratic rule in recent times despite international efforts to expand political freedom in the South American nation. Opposition leaders have been forced into exile, and those who remain in the country claim that Maduro is an illegitimate president. Delegates from the United States, the European Union, Brazil, and the United Kingdom attended the one-day event. The event looked at ways to boost ongoing negotiations between the Maduro administration and a coalition of opposition parties known as the Democratic Unitary Platform. The talks began in Mexico back in 2021, but stalled at the end of last year. In the Mexico talks, opposition parties are seeking change in the electoral system that will ensure a level playing field in next year's presidential elections. Meanwhile, Maduro's government wants sanctions over Venezuela's state-run oil company to be lifted and has demanded that the United Kingdom and the United States unfreeze its assets in those countries. While the negotiations have so far advanced slowly, many countries now see the Mexico talks as the best path to overcome the political crisis in Venezuela. British American Tobacco, a multinational company, the world's second biggest tobacco group that makes Lucky Strike and Dunhill cigarettes, has agreed to pay more than $635 million to authorities in the United States. But why? Well, this comes after the company's Singapore subsidiary pleaded guilty of violating U.S. sanctions on North Korea and of committing bank fraud. The tobacco firm sold its products to the North from the year 2007 to 2017. North Korea is under a series of U.S. sanctions to cut off funding for its nuclear and ballistic missile stake, as a screenshot of his secret account jumped out. The image shared by Musk was meant to indicate how to use the subscription feature on Twitter. The purpose of the tool is to give access to bonus content by paying extra fees. And Musk was showing that already 25,000 people have subscribed to his account. But the image had a strange detail.